A super wolf blood moon is coming January 20th, along with a total eclipse that will last over an hour.
At the moon and its orbit around.
Super blood moon total eclipse. It's happening.
Super blood wolf moon eclipse. Whew, got to get it all out in one breath.
Blood Moon 2019. What are conspiracists saying will happen during the lunar eclipse? A total lunar eclipse this month will paint the blood moon a deep red color, and conspiracy theorists have very bizarre ideas about what this means. The January full moon will turn blood red in the morning hours of Monday, January 21st, around 5 a.m. GMT. The so-called blood moon is the result of refracting sunlight, turning the Earth's shadow red during the eclipse.
If the ancient Greek scientists could produce these gear systems 2,000 years ago, the whole history of Western technology would have to be rewritten.
And it is done on a flat model. But anyway, so think about this, people, especially the newbies out there. You know, they're telling us that the Earth is going around the sun at 67,000 miles an hour. And then, of course, the sun going around the Milky Way at 483,000 miles an hour. And then when we get up to the Milky Way going around to the Great Attractor, we are at 1,300,000 miles per hour. And this has been going on for millennia, and the skies have never changed. What is their excuse? Oh, the stars are so far away, you'd never know. And relativity, right? Bunch of nonsense.
Yeah.
It upsets all our ideas about what the ancient Greeks were capable of. It rewrites the history of technology. It tells us that things were going on in 2nd century BC Greece, which we had no idea about.
And anybody that thinks that just because it was 2,000 years ago that these people were in the dark, are you ever wrong? Because they probably surpassed us in several areas of engineering than what we are even at today. In fact, I'm sure they have, and I think that a lot of that has been hidden from us and is somewhere down in a Vatican, archive when they tried to suppress all this knowledge. So yeah, I love the way.
I think it's safe to say that the ancients actually had an advantage over us because they were taught how to think and how to reason, whereas modern education is more along the lines of indoctrination, where we're taught how to follow rules, read from a book, and regurgitate information.
I do believe that what is spoken of in Revelation will be very significant indeed, something that hasn't been seen ever in the history of the world up until then. But let's get into lunar eclipses, specifically the blood moon, or the wolf blood moon, as they call it, in January. We'll get into it a little bit more and find out, why is NASA hiding this from everyone? Why is it that this is one of the biggest proofs that we indeed are on a spinning ball flying through space, when in fact we will see that there is a lot more than meets the eye when it comes to lunar eclipses.
If the phases of the moon are not caused by the shadow of the Earth, what about the lunar eclipse? Now, that one, everybody seems to understand to be the result of the moon going into the Earth's shadow, as depicted here. You have the Earth's penumbra and the Earth's umbra. And as the moon starts to go into the umbra side of it, that's where somehow the dark shadow of the Earth makes the moon turn red. Like, that even makes sense. But that's what we're taught. That's what all the charts and everything show. But is that really the case? Well, let's see.
We're going to look at the impossible eclipse of January 31st, 2018, which decimates NASA's theory. Now, we have the sun rising in the east. This is early morning hours now. The moon's been up all night, and then it comes into the shadow of the Earth, supposedly. And the moon is setting down here. Now, I need to point out something that's going to become relevant to those who want to think this through. The moon is actually advancing down faster than the sun is moving up. This is going to become important when somebody who has cognitive dissonance tries to explain this shadow anomaly. And just keep that in mind. The moon is racing faster down than the sun is rising by about 5 degrees an hour. Is that right? 5 degrees a night. I can't remember what it is, but it's definitely going faster than the from our vantage point. So we have this is my crude drawing, of course, of the Earth, the sun about to rise this way and going down. Now, do you think the shadow would be on the bottom? Do you really believe that? Does that make sense to you? Well, that's what NASA says. You know, I mean, that's what I would think anyway. Is this logical or illogical? What if I did this? How about that? Would that be logical? Would it? I don't know. Let's find out what actually happened on this day. Pick one. Which way is the way it should be? Now I'm going to have several links below in the comment section, or rather in the description section, so that you can see all these different videos. I don't know who the original people are. They're so embedded, so many different people doing so many other videos, and not always are they given credit for who it is. So I'm just going to give you the videos that I saw. You can go and find out who the original people are. It would take me all day, literally, I think, to track down all these people. So here is one person. We're going to see several different, or at least 2 different ones here. You'll notice that a lot of this is red, but here's the darkest part up here. This person, unfortunately, wherever this person was, the moon was going to set before the shadow could encroach all the way on the moon. But anyway, let's put this into motion. You can see by the blue in the sky that the sun is rising on the other side. I'm not saying it has risen, but it is definitely close enough to the horizon to where it should be seen. Here it is a little bit later on, farther down. You can see the darkness of the shadows actually a little bit farther down on the moon. This is going to become actually a lot more clear in the next video because it's higher up and there's a longer time for the shadow to encroach. And remember, the moon is running away from the sun slightly faster than the sun is rising. And this is like a top left. You would expect bottom right, but it's top left is where the shadow is. So let me go ahead and switch here to another one. Alright, here's another vantage point. Wait till you see this one, guys. Same thing. Facing west in the early morning. You're going to see it'll brighten up here in a little bit. Notice the shadow is encroaching on the top. And let me forward it up a little bit. Check it out. Oh, I'm going to show you something here. Look how big the diameter of the Earth must appear from the moon. Look at that shadow. Isn't that incredible? People are going to say, well, Rich, the Earth is 4 times bigger. That's what you would expect. Really? Then why do we get these little teeny Earth pictures in the sky from Apollo? Can you reconcile that one? Those little teeny Earth pictures up in the sky, would they cause this kind of shadow on the moon? I don't think so. See, it's setting and the shadow's on the top. And if you'll notice, the shadow is actually moving farther down here. Don't believe me? Let's go back. Let's start at where there's light. There we go. Definitely less than halfway. Correct? Now we're at halfway. The last frame you see. The shadow's encroaching from the top down. How was that possible? Look at the sun brighten the sky up. Unreal. Now, people would tell you that if you're up in a tower, a really big tower on a high mountain, you're going to see the sunrise earlier because it's a ball, right? Well, how far out is the moon? It should be seeing the sunrise. How high up is that? Way higher than any mountain on Earth. And yet it's got this shadow supposedly from the Earth on the north side, on the top side, I should say. Incredible. The people would ever believe NASA after this. So many problems with this, it's crazy. You know another problem with this? I can't remember the person who did an awesome experiment which verified, as I did science with the umbra penumbra, that everybody wants to argue against in another video. I'll cover that again also because it's hilarious, the cognitive dissonance. But when you have one sphere block another sphere, it causes an S-curve shadow, not a shadow like this.
Revelations 6:12-14 reads, "And I beheld, when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars of heaven fell into the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs, when she shaketh of a mighty wind. And the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places." The first of these 4 blood moons peaked on April 15th, 2014, followed by 3 more eclipses on October 8th in 2014, April 4th in 2015, and September 28th in 2015. We don't know the day, we don't know the hour, we don't know the year Christ is coming back, but we can see the day approaching. On the day of the lunar eclipse, the full moon will enter into its darkest portion of the Earth's shadow, known as the umbra. All right, let's talk about the umbra.
The Great Umbra Penumbra Conundrum. Looks like I've found a pretty large hole in the heliocentric model, but who knows? I could have just flawed understanding, and so I'm going to present it to you, and then you guys can tell me. So either I found something or there's some lame brain excuse for it. We'll see which one. So it looks like it's time for Totally Global. But we're going to be looking at it, and it's going to take 3 things into account: the moon, the earth, the sun, but it should be really easy to see, so let's get into that example and proof. First up is parallel rays. So science says that the sun rays hit the earth parallel, and these images that you've seen, I'm sure, before with what's called crispicular rays are a strange anomaly because, well, do those lines look parallel to you? Now, a few points about what we are looking at. Remember that they say that the sun is 93 million miles away, so the excuse is just like the railroad tracks that meet at our horizon, but it appears I can see where all the sun rays converge. Well, let's say, since science does, that sun rays do hit the earth parallel. Now, side note on that, the reason I think Aristophanes is a lie is because in 300 BC, the man could not have done what they have ascribed to him. It's just not realistic to believe that Aristophanes, 1, knew that the earth was a ball. We could give him that. That 2, that the sun was at an infinite distance. Okay, we'll give him that. That the rays were parallel, even though he saw crispicular rays like we've seen earlier. But okay, we'll give him that. But then also that he believed that the sun orbited the earth. See, that's where their whole story falls apart. Because he would have been smart enough to know that the sun at an infinite distance could not get all the way around the earth in 24 hours. Yet that's the story we're told, and that's what you have to believe if you're going to believe the story of the sticks in Egypt. I hate to tell Carl Sagan, who's supposed to be an observant scientist and truth seeker, who couldn't see the fabrication of Aristophanes right in front of him, that even Stevie Wonder could have seen this one. But now let's move on to the Great Umbra Penumbra Conundrum. Okay, so we're ready to go on to the conundrum here, and we will remember to go ahead and give them some of their so-called facts. So we're going to say that the light rays do travel parallel and hit the Earth in that parallel fashion. So what you're seeing on the screen now is simply some little examples of that, and we zoomed in here, and you can see that those lines are hitting the Earth parallel or perpendicular to the surface. And you can do it with a smaller sun too. I'm just pointing that out here, that it doesn't have to be bigger than the Earth, or it can be smaller from that perspective, doesn't matter. We're just showing that light travels across and hits the Earth. Now we're going to look at a solar eclipse, and that's when the moon is in orbit and it blocks the sun, or when it's on the backside of the Earth, and they say that at that time the Earth blocks the light, and then that's why we see a lunar eclipse. So that's the accepted beliefs and the accepted model. But now we're looking at a solar eclipse, and we're going to see exactly how they draw for us the umbra and the penumbra. So go ahead and go to any site that shows you how these shadows work with the eclipse or the lunar eclipse, and you'll see lines drawn like this from the top edge there of the sun down meeting with the outer edge of the earth and so forth and so on, and you have a problem. And does anybody know what that problem is? It should be kind of obvious that when they show us eclipses, they show the sun rays going at angles. You can see here that these are clearly not parallel rays. Why is it that science can invoke these different phenomena only when needed by these particular scientists? Are the rays hitting us parallel or are they not? Because now you've backed yourself into a corner yet again, NASA. You have a choice to make. You can't have both. So which one is it? Is it the lunar eclipses are what we were taught? Or does the sun come in and hit the earth in parallel rays? All right, up next we have the lunar eclipse. So we're looking at another picture, the same thing, only this time now the earth has gotten in the way, according to mainstream science, and blocking the light to the sun. But again, when we draw the lines that we see, we'll notice that they have again created quite a big conundrum for themselves. So again, all you have to do is just look at the screen here and see what they've done from the rays that are coming off the sun. They are crisscrossing, they are going at angles. How can that be possible if the sun rays hit the earth parallel? So you'll see what they do when they need it to be parallel. They say that the sunlight is parallel. When they need to invoke an umbra and a penumbra, then and only then do they now say that the sun rays do come in at angles. All right, so let's do a little summary piece real quick on the conundrum that's in front of science. The summary from this video is that if rays from the sun are parallel, then eclipses do not cause two shadow types like the umbra and the penumbra. Therefore, something is up there. The second bullet point is if rays do come in at all angles, then the Aristophanes experiment and test and the belief that the rotundity of the earth could be measured the same way are all out the window. And the third and final bullet point, and that last bullet point is only one can be true, and whichever stays means the other fact must go. So think about it, my globehead friends. Which one are you going to keep? Next, I want you to hear something interesting. So what I have for you is a short tape of a recent eclipse, I believe 2015 March, from Australia. And just listen to what the announcer says and listen to the thousands of little girls screaming. And then you'll put two and two together when he says that they're watching the eclipse on a screen because they have cameras above the clouds, meaning that everybody on the ground was blocked from seeing the eclipse because of clouds. Then why do we have 3,000 girls screaming like Justin Bieber came on stage, which is probably the case. It was just a lifted soundbite from some concert. But listen yourself, you'll definitely hear what I'm saying. This is not people watching an eclipse.
We can see on the radio on the screen a fantastic total solar eclipse taken from the pictures above the clouds.
This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, here we have a diagram, what it should be, according to their stupid model. You know, it just dawned on me that the darker shadow is the one they call the umbra, but that's the one that produces red. And yet it produces red all through the middle too. Craziness. People will swallow it. Wait till you see what gets swallowed here. This is New Mexico. Here it comes. There's the moon. Notice the shadow at the top. And the sun is already starting to brighten the sky as it sets in the west. How in the hell can the shadow be on the top if the earth is blocking it? This is an east-west event, not north-south. Watch how the shadow keeps going down. It should be running away from the shadow. What do you mean away from the shadow? Well, I'll explain that in a second. See how it's going totally dark? How is that possible? This is why. This guy here, He's the one near Illinois somewhere, Indiana. He actually starts explaining in the video. This is AIG astrophysicist Eclipse heliocentrism proof versus reality. That will be in the comments section below or in the description section. This guy says the shadow is coming from underneath the Earth. I mean, the sun is rising. He can't explain why the shadow's on the top, so he says the light from the sun is going underneath the Earth and then comes back up to the sun and hits the top. Crazy. Craziness, anything to keep your cognitive dissonance going. Look how bright it's getting there and the moon's still up. But when you see this, here it is. He's explaining here how the shadow is going under the Earth and then back up to the moon. Because he can't get rid of the model he's told. That's where he's explaining it. It's at 8 minutes 40 seconds into the video, if you want to see that. Alrighty, I'll end it here. I want to make it short, but it's so simple. So simple. There's no way what they tell us and with what we actually observe can produce what you see on the screen in this video. You cannot have it this way. You cannot have it on the top. How is that possible? It's not. Not in their model. Absolutely impossible. Now, on this video, I do know where it's coming from. This is from Sun and Moon Group United, Robert Forts, his photography here. I'm trying to get to the point where I want you to see it. Not only does he show this, the shadow on the wrong side, but he'll also zoom around to the other side and show you where the sun is rising. Absolutely impossible for that to happen.
Besides the above difficulties or incompatibilities, many cases are on record of the sun and moon being eclipsed when both were above the horizon. That's a big problem. The sun, the earth, and the moon not in a straight line, but the earth below the sun and moon, out of the reach or direction of both, and yet a lunar eclipse has occurred. Is it possible that a shadow of the earth could be thrown upon the moon when sun, earth, and moon were not in the same line? The difficulty has been met by assuming the influence of refraction, as in the following quotations. And he's citing somebody here. It says, on some occasions, the horizontal refraction amounts to 36 or 37 minutes, and generally to about 33 minutes, which is equal to the diameter of the sun or moon, and therefore the whole disk of the sun or moon will appear above the horizon, both at rising and setting, although actually below. This is the reason that the full moon has sometimes been seen above the horizon before the sun was set. A remarkable instance of this kind was observed at Paris on the 19th of July, 1750, when the moon appeared visibly eclipsed, while the sun was distinctly to be seen above the horizon. That's a quote from Astronomy and Astronomical Instruments by George G. Gary. Another quote here. On the 20th of July, 1837, the moon appeared to rise eclipsed before the sun had set. The same phenomenon was observed on the 20th of September, 1717. That's from McCulloch's Geography, page 85. Let's see, he's got another one here. In the lunar eclipses of July 17th, 1590, November 3rd, 1648, June 16th, 1666, and May 26, 1668, the moon rose eclipsed, whilst the sun was still apparently above the horizon. Those horizontal eclipses were noticed as early as the time of Pliny. That's according to the Illustrated London Almanac for 1864, the astronomical articles in which are by James Glacier, ESQ of the Greenwich Royal Observatory, page 99. Another citation. On the 17th of January 1870, a similar phenomena occurred, and again in July of the same year. That's the reference there is the Daily Telegraph, July 16th, 1870. The only explanation which has been given of this phenomenon is the refraction caused by the Earth's atmosphere. This at first sight is a plausible and fairly satisfactory solution, but on carefully examining the subject, it is found to be utterly inadequate. And those who have recourse to it cannot be aware that the refraction of an object and that of a shadow are in opposite directions. An object by refraction is bent upwards, but the shadow of any object is bent downwards, as will be seen by the following very simple experiment. Take a plain white shallow basin and place it 10 or 12 inches from a light in such a position that the shadow of the edge of the basin touches the center of the bottom. Hold a rod vertically over and on the edge of the shadow to denote its true position. Now let water be gradually poured into the basin, and the shadow will be seen to recede or shorten inwards and downwards. But if a rod or a spoon is allowed to rest, with its upper end towards the light and the lower end in the bottom of the vessel, it will be seen as the water is poured in to bend upwards, thus proving that if refraction operated at all, it would do so by elevating the moon above its true position and throwing the Earth's shadow downwards or directly away from the moon's surface. Hence it is clear that a lunar eclipse by a shadow of the Earth is an utter impossibility. The moon's entire surface, or that portion of it which is presented to the Earth, has also been distinctly seen during the whole time of a total lunar eclipse. This is entirely incompatible with the doctrine that an eclipse of the moon is the result of a shadow of the Earth passing over its surface. Mr. Walker, who observed the lunar eclipse on March 19, 1848, near Collumpton, says, the appearances were as usual till 20 minutes past 9. At that period, and for the space of the next hour, instead of an eclipse, or the shadow umbra of the Earth being the cause of the total obscurity of the moon, the whole face of that body became very quickly and most beautifully illuminated, and assumed the appearance of the glowing heat of fire from the furnace, rather tinged with a deep red, the whole disk of the moon being as perfect with light as if there had been no eclipse whatever. The moon positively gave good light from its disk during the total eclipse. That's from Philosophical Magazine number 220 from August 1848. The following case, although not exactly similar to the last, is worth recording here as showing that some other cause existed than the Earth's shadow to produce a lunar eclipse. He cites somebody here saying, extraordinary phenomena attending the eclipse. On Saturday evening, February 27th, 1858, at Brussels, the eclipse was seen by several English philosophers who happened to be present. It was attended by a very remarkable appearance, which Dr. Foster said was wholly inexplicable on any laws of natural philosophy with which he was acquainted. The moment before contact, a small dusky spot appeared on the moon's surface, and during the whole of the eclipse, a reddish-brown fringe, or penumbra, projected above the shadow of the Earth. Another thing still more remarkable was the apparent irregularity of the edge of the shadow. 3 persons, one of them an astronomer, were witnesses of these curious phenomena, which no law of refraction can in any way explain. That's a quote from Morning Star of Wednesday, March 3rd, 1858.
In the umbra, the moon will briefly vanish from sight, of reappearing glowing with a deep red color. The effect is caused by the refraction of sunlight in the Earth's dusty atmosphere, with filters out, but all the red wavelengths of light in the visible spectrum. U.S. Space Agency NASA explained, this happens for the exact same reason that our sunrises and sunsets here on Earth are brilliant shades of pink and oranges. Yet NASA never shows us the great blood moons from the ISS. Why is that? Why is it we never can see the path of totality from space? Why don't you zoom in your magical telescopes in so we can say and we can see a closer look But no, NASA won't show us these type of things when it comes to lunar eclipses, solar eclipses, or even the great blood moon eclipses that's going to be happening on January 20th. What is going on? What is happening? NASA chimes in all of the time when it comes to these type of phenomenon happening in the skies, and yet they never really show us. January 21st will be an interesting day. Hopefully most people will be taking their P900s, their P1000s, zooming in. But please, NASA, all that money, $56 million a day that you're given, can you show us a video of the blood moon? How about the lunar eclipse from the ISS? How about from one of your great rocket ships? That would be wonderful. That would be lovely. Thank you, NASA. But no, NASA chimes in on all the articles to do with the lunar eclipse. During a lunar eclipse, the only light reaching the moon passes through the Earth's atmosphere. The blue shorter wavelength light scatters, and the longer wavelength red light passes through and makes it to the moon, they said. This is NASA. This is NASA chiming in. But let's take a look at the lunar eclipse. Let's take a look a little bit closer at what they've been telling us and what the true facts reveal. What is it when you actually start thinking and actually looking into the lunar eclipse a little bit more? What about the blood moon? What are you going to be doing? What's your take? Something to think about, something to ponder. Could it be that everything that NASA has been saying and scientism is exactly true? Is this 100% scientific? Is this done under the scientific method? Are these theories of men? Could there be other theories that explain the phenomenon? You have to decide. You have to research. You ask the questions. Don't just take their word for it, or even my word for it. Do your own research. Find out truly what the blood moon is all about. Find out truly what lunar and the solar eclipses are really doing and what is really happening. And while there are mysteries, and sometimes scientism likes to say that they have it all figured out, they're so far away from true science it's not even funny. And that's what I have been saying for many years on my channel, Celebrate Truth. Hopefully you'll continue to expose the world's lies and celebrate truth as we continue on in 2019. Blessings.